Good morning, friends. Welcome to my channel. My name's Justin. I play guitar on songs in Nashville, and today I have a very special guest. If you've never met the guy, you've probably met his pedals. This is Robert Keeley of Keeley Electronics.
Hey there.
And let's see. My very first pedal of yours was the Fuzz Head way back in the day. I loved it because it was like a fuzz face, but I wasn't a fuzz guy at the time, so it could behave kind of like an Overdrive too.
Yep.
And that's why I liked it more than other fuzz pedals.
You picked up on the exact reason that it was designed, because everyone was wanting to see a fuzz out of me.
Yeah.
And because all I had done at that point in time was the compressor. And then I had the Time Machine boost out, which was a project I was working on with a guy out in California, David Zabatos. So I came across this, I'm like, okay, I want to come out with my own pedal. And so I started looking at some fuzz faces, and I'm playing cowboy chords on there, and it sounds horrible. And I'm like, man, I need something that's more like an Overdrive.
Right.
And doesn't have that kind of response around the low end. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but I still need to call it fuzz something.
Right.
Because I would like to sell these things.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
So the fuzz head was born.
Yeah. How about head instead of face?
Yes, exactly.
Done. Exactly. I like it. I like it. So my second run-in with your pedals, when I first moved to town as a young guitar player who was like, I kind of had a reputation in the small Kansas town I came from as like a good guitar player, but I came to Nashville with my wife, and that whole story is out on the internet. There's a True Tone interview where I talk about it. I think I talked about it a bit on Brett Papa's channel, a mutual friend of ours. But I remember going downtown and going through the honky tonks, and it was my first time. I didn't come scout all that out beforehand. I kind of had a panic attack because these guys were so good. I was like, I don't do that. Why did I move here? I don't do that. But the guy I met at the very end of the block, he was playing at second fiddle, was James Mitchell. And if you all don't know James Mitchell's playing, I promise you've heard it. He is one of the most creative and just punishingly perfect telly pickers in town. Like he can play Brent, he can play Danny Gatton, and he's got his own really cool inside out way. He's a big jazz guy. Well, I watched him play, and again the panic attack is continuing here,
Right.
And I go up and talk to him at the end of his set, and the first thing, I kid you not, the first thing he says is like, oh man, yeah, was my tone okay? I got this new Keeley 4-knob compressor. What do you think about it? I think it sounded pretty good, And I'm like, pedals? I can't do what you just did, and I just moved here. Like, what in the world, And you're nice? This isn't happening. But I saw the Keeley stamp of ingenuity there, on his board, and I just feel like I've been surrounded by your stuff. And then to meet you over at Brett's when you guys did some videos with him and with Tom, and I got to play through the pedal too. And I'm sure some of y'all have seen those videos on do I call you Rob or Robert?
I think I like Rob, actually.
Rob, yeah, me too. Me too. It feels like we're old friends instead of brand new friends. They're on his channel or on Brett's channel, and they're you can see Tom playing through the Noble Screamer, which is wildly entertaining, and then Brett, and you did one with Corey as well, right?
Oh yeah,
is that right?
Corey Congilio, we did one.
Corey is awesome. I kind of got into this YouTube thing late compared to some of these other people, and just having met a bunch of the guys who have their own thing going, it's just been really remarkable to see what everybody's built themselves into and what they're doing with their channel and stuff. So
it is remarkable. Some of these people that I was vaguely familiar with 10 years ago, they've blossomed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's really fun to see how this music and music scene or whatever grows and evolves.
Yeah. So the reason we're here today, Rob and his buddy Aaron reached out, and they wanted to talk about some new pedals they're releasing. And I've kind of been doing some of these videos where I talk about why I make the choices that I do for whatever tone I'm dialing up, how I use a pedal interacting with the front end of the amp, or if I add reverb or whatever. And so you guys gave me this pile of pedals, which I've used a few of them. I haven't opened this one up. I'm really sorry. I haven't plugged that in yet. But it's really remarkable. Like, everybody knows about the old Noble Screamer, which mine's nicely reliced because it has spent time in my backpack.
I love it. I took pictures of it already.
Yeah.
It's very cool to see.
I'm glad that was your reaction and not like, hey man, why aren't you taking care of the thing that... But yeah, let's walk through some of these. And I think, you know, every time I do anything involving gear, I try to use it in context. So I show you not only, you know, it's not some demo song that I made for the pedal to show off all its strengths. I'm going to show you how I use it actually in my job of laying guitar tracks on a song. So, you know, these will work their way into the rotation for, you know, it might be rhythm parts, it might be solos or whatever. But yeah, let's go through the 4 pedals, and I can talk about how I've used them so far, and you can give me more tips on how to better use them. And so wherever you want to start.
Yeah, so it all started with the Noble Screamer.
Right.
And the idea behind it is I wanted to take 2 pedals that I could divide the circuit in half.
Right.
And kind of get this XY, or this cross of you can take the drive section from one and the tone of the other. Well, that took over then. Then it was a matter of finding where I could combine certain sounds together to get certain effects or to avoid certain things.
Yeah.
And worked out where I could take 8 different pedals then, and then create 8 different new sounds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In just 4 different stomp boxes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I think one of the best, I think probably the most important happy accident that occurred is what you alluded to, and that is I saw some demos of this where they had recorded the guitar track and then they just showed, oh, see how you sit in the mix different there? See how that fixes it up?
Right.
And it was very powerful.
Right.
And I was like, now I didn't see that coming, but that's exactly, you know.
So just to remind people, the dip switches, like you've got basically the tone of both pedals on this side, and you've got the overdrive of both pedals on this side. And however you set the dip switch determines which pedal's part of that circuit is actually in.
Correct.
So you can use the tone knob of like for this, it's like a Tube Screamer and a Nobles. You can use the tone of the Tube Screamer with the drive of the Nobles and vice versa.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Well, that was cool.
We are able to do that because we designed these dual potentiometers to control both circuits at the same time.
Nice.
I know.
You've made all these mutants.
Yes. We built both of the circuits in their entirety in there, and then come up with custom potentiometers to work both of them. And that allows us to do that.
Yeah, okay. So the Angry Orange, I have taken that on some sessions with me, and tell everybody what the 2 circuits are in the Angry Orange.
So up on top, we have a muff. We were searching for the best one, or the one that we felt, we could blend with the DS1 the best, and we came across the Sovtech ones. The Civil War muff is what they call it.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's what we use for the top circuit when both of the switches are up.
Right.
So when the drive and the tone is up, it's that Civil War muff. Then down here, we started playing with the DS1. We wanted the DS1 for a couple cool reasons, because the muff technically is what they call a soft clipping circuit.
Right,
okay?
right, yeah. Low harmonics, right?
Yeah. And then down here, this one is, the DS1 is a hard clipper.
Right.
So that allowed 2 different clipping sounds. But the interesting thing is that both the Big Muff and the DS1 have a similar type of tone control. It's not the exact same component values, so they sounded different.
Gotcha.
They have different scoop, different mid-range push. So that was really fun. When we were playing with the different DS1s, we noticed that off-the-shelf mid-2000 ones didn't sound very hot. If we got an old vintage Japanese one and you put enough voltage to it, it sounded great. And then we're like, hey, the new Boss Waza stuff is really fantastic. Let's look at that.
It really is, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. It is awesome.
Here's the Angry Orange. Feels like a lot of low end right off the bat.
And so we got that, and we're like, okay, that's what sound we need to put in our pedal.
Yeah.
So our DS1 in here is of the Waza Craft.
Right, right.
Scent.
Yeah. So it, to me, as a guitar player and as somebody who has spent years trying to find the right pedals to like stack together, like this is going to be my real low gain. This is going to be my slightly higher gain. The 2 of them is going to be my solo, or maybe the 2 of them with a GE7. Like this is a really different way to combine pedals. I can't stack them. I can't have both of them on at the same time, but I can. It's like I can turn. It's almost as if I had them side by side, but I could turn half of one pedal off with the other half of the other one on. And there's some really interesting sounds. I was using this, and I'll show you guys this in a minute. I was using this, the DS1 side is just great for solos. Like I had this big country rock song, think like Hardy, right?
Okay.
He's a newer artist that is going ultra hard rock and some of the stuff. Like my friend Jerry plays double kick on some, seriously, he's got Zach Wilde playing on the record.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's like, I remember that guy. But just the DS side of this was gnarly by itself. I was playing into I remember distinctly, I was playing into my 64 Bassman, which is it's a tuxedo Bassman, right?
Okay.
So it's got the old 6G, 6B circuit.
Yes.
I'm pointing like this because this is where it sits
That's
in
right.
the rack next to me when I'm playing in the studio. It's not right here. Yeah. Is the Bassman in the room with us now? But it's when they had moved to the black Tolex and the black faceplates, but they were still using that old circuit. So it's kind of a transitional amp. My friend Rob has one as well, Rob McNally. I love that amp. But I had it set at just where I like to run things, just so you know how I use all your pedals. I don't like going into dead clean amps. Like I'm not a twin guy. I like setting my amp on the edge of breakup so I can control either I have that sort of clean plus sound, where there's like you get the harmonics around the note, but it's still clean, or I can smack it and get some dirt. So that I had my amp set like that, and I was using this. And for all you ultra nerds, I was running into a 212 Bogner cab. That's my main cartage cabinet. And I use the same speaker that I do here. It's an ET65. And I think the other side is a Vintage 30, but I never mic that one up. I've never liked Vintage 30s. That's my dirty secret as a guitar player. Just don't like them. But
the only one loud enough to admit it, right?
no, man, Tom hates them.
Right? Okay.
There are some people in town who put them in a Tweed Deluxe, and it sounds freaking great.
Right?
Bob Britt, Dan Dugmore.
I've never tried that in my Tweed Deluxes.
Dude.
I like the creambacks. I have some.
Yeah, those are great. I've got an Alnico Blue in my Lazy J. That's my
I might have to give that a try, though.
Right. Well, the guys that have them in it have really old Vintage 30s.
Okay.
And from what I understand, I don't know if this is true, the Vintage 30 was created for Celestion to have an Alnico Blue that could handle higher power levels.
Yeah, makes sense.
If that's true, they failed miserably.
Right.
It doesn't sound anything like it at all. But it holds up really well under gain, and it's got this focus sound. If you're a high gain guy, if you're doing the chugging thing or the squealy lead thing, it really makes all that stuff articulate. I'm just a low gain guy, so I like the sound of a good speaker breakup, more mid range, smoother highs, like you were saying, the creamback. My favorite speaker is that ET65 from Warehouse. I have it in my Deluxe Reverb. I have it in my cabinet here. That everybody who watches the channel knows that I use a 112 Morgan open back cabinet in my garage that I have mic'd up, and it's running that ET65. And so I put that on the one side of my Bogner cab. And this pedal, with a basement on the edge of breakup, and that speaker in that cabinet was just glorious. And man, just the solo stuff out of this was so cool. And then I could switch it to the muff side, and I'm not looking to do like Smashing Pumpkins type thick fuzzy overdrive, but the low gain settings are like total departure from what I normally get, and super cool. And I'll show you guys that, and we'll cut away to that actually. Very cool.
Great.
Yeah.
When we were at Brett Papa's house yesterday, this pedal jumped off the board he had it on in my ears, because he had it into a Marshall. It was one of those JTM Studios.
I want one of those.
And he had it a little bit broken up too. And I have the tendency to develop my pedals on a clean platform so I can hear everything that the pedal's doing. I can't have it mixed with anything else.
Makes perfect sense.
So I'm constantly developing pedals in that environment.
Yeah.
So I can forget how interesting that is when you hear that gain stacking then.
Right.
Or that is tremendous. And this thing just jumped off the page yesterday, man. It was so cool to hear.
That's awesome.
That DS1 through his Marshall. I wonder how similar it is to maybe the front end of that Bogner that you were, or the basement. The basement, yeah, exactly.
Into a Bogner cab.
Yeah. The The Bassman, yeah.
Yeah.
Being similar to that Marshall offset type of head. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's based on an older Bassman,
Yeah.
right? Like the early Marshalls.
That's what I'm
at least,
thinking.
So
that was kind of cool that you brought that up.
yeah. I have also spent quite a bit of time with this. Tell us what the two circuits are here.
Great.
In the old Blues Disorder.
Yep.
I look at the blue knobs and the name Blues Disorder, and I think Boss BD2, but that's not it, right?
I know. It's so funny. I'm giving my customers a hard time here because they're confident that this is a blues driver. Right? This has to be my blues driver.
Yeah.
It's like so obvious, Rob.
Yeah.
No, darn it. So this is the blues breaker.
Okay.
Up on top.
Yeah.
And frequently we see that as like a King of Tone.
Totally.
Or a Morning Glory.
Yeah.
JHS.
Yeah.
You know, that type of circuit. And you can put all kinds of tweaks. We had a pedal called the 1962 and a 1962X.
Yeah.
I had two different pedals. And then we had other versions that Aaron and I tweaked in a pedal called the DDR. And I used a blues breaker circuit in there. And he helped me tune it. And that one is widely known as our best blues breaker so far.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then down below is the OCD.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
So I've got this.
Which version?
Okay, this version is going to be 1.7 and a half.
Oh, my goodness.
with a Keeley mod to it.
Yeah.
So, and this blues breaker is the same way too, as we were playing with a variety of, I think I have 3 King of Tones in my room.
Yeah.
And And so there's all different ways you can set them up and get them to sound. So we got them to sound their best, and then that's where we set the bar. We got to make ours do everything that those pedals can do.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun.
Man, and I was pretty knocked out by the sounds I was getting out of that pedal. I was using it for almost kind of the way that I use an RC booster, where I have it set really low gain, but I use, on the RC booster, I use the 2 bass and treble EQ settings just to kind of, it almost like takes my tone and just kind of, just a little bit, you know? And that did the same thing. This night, it kind of got a little more 3D. It was like all the frequencies that I want to hear and that I know my mix engineer wants to hear.
Right.
Are going to pop out. It's not adding this big, unnecessary low end, you know. And those circuits, well, actually, some of the OCDs had a massive low end
they
to
do.
them, you know.
It's kind of hard to get a circuit that has so much push in it and over everything.
Yeah.
On the OCD side, and then you go to something here that has a lot to do with subtlety. The low gain settings on a blues breaker are where it's at. You know, those are great sounds.
Absolutely.
Really great sounds.
Yeah.
The compression, just the rounding of the notes, all sounds wonderful.
Totally.
And then what makes this pedal cool is the hybrid mode then. So then you can take just a little slice of that OCD in the tone section, which has this big mid-range push in it. It's almost like a gain stage.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. It totally, yeah.
And so that provides you with that blues breaker clipping and that kind of tube amp sound.
Yep.
And then you can push the mid-range out of it depending on what works in your mix or live.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, like my experience with these so far, and the only one I want to talk about this because I haven't used this yet, but I will have cut away to using these again in the context of a song, either doing a solo track or a rhythm track just to show how they work. Let's try it in OCD mode. I'm not changing a single thing on the pedal. my fear when I first heard what you were doing, especially with the Noble Screamer, I was like, I mean, Tom said it. He was like, well, half your pedal sucks.
Yes.
Because he hates tube screamers, you know?
Wasn't that the best?
That was hilarious. I'm not quite, I don't hate them. I just feel like there's a specific context in which they really shine, and it's hard to get that in the studio. So my fear early on was, I'm going to like half this pedal, you know, or I'm going to buy this. I need to love both of these circuits. But the way that you've allowed us to switch from the gain of one to the other while using the tone of one to the other, like, they really are ultra versatile. And I would tell people to try them out and listen to the stuff that I get out of them. It's not like you are only buying half a pedal if you only have a lot of experience with the one side. The way that they work together is really cool.
It is fun. When I first started modding pedals, the Tube Screamer was the first one, and then the Blues Driver was the second pedal that I modded, right?
Yeah.
So I was so used to the way that a Tube Screamer sounded, and I was a fan of Trey Anastasio, and he played a couple of them.
Yeah.
And so that was just the way a good guitar sounded. I love Stevie Ray Vaughan. I thought, well, and then when I got to the Blues Driver, that's a much different sound and much different treble response and everything else. And yeah, I didn't quite care for it, but at some point in time when I went back to helping out modify Tube Screamers again, we might have been behind or something, and I thought, is there something wrong with this pedal? This is a god-awful sound. You know what I mean? Who would ever want to put that blanket on there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
After you move away from it and you distance yourself. So it is kind of funny watching people's reaction to putting a Tube Screamer in there, because if you're a fan of Tube Screamers and you know what they do and you know how to make them sound great, this is a killer sounding Tube Screamer.
Absolutely.
And it's always going to have its place. It's a classic pedal. It's a classic guitar tool, guitar sound.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you can just take one or the other part of it now and push it through a Spectrum tone control or through a different drive section.
Yeah, the Spectrum. That's right. That's what the old... I sold all my old Nobles pedals when they started going for $800. So the only other Noble circuits I have are the Nordland pedals, which are allegedly, I think it's the same guy, just building it out of components that he wasn't sort of, he like had an arm tied behind his back, like you will do it, but you have to build it with these ultra cheap parts. But so how does, I don't even know. I remember seeing Spectrum, and I always thought that it operated really, it sounds like it operates very differently. Like how does that tone circuit work?
So what it does is you can think of, as you turn this control up, it goes from a flat position to boosting the bass and treble at the same time. Yamaha called it like a loudness control. No, they had their own version, but that Spectrum control is, it kind of pushes the bass and treble of your guitar mid-range up at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want the flatter sound, you know, you see people turn it down here, so it's just a little bit of bass boost, and then it can get pretty full, you know, when you crank it up.
That's awesome.
So that's different because like a Tube Screamer tone control just allows more and more highs through.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's pretty mid-rangey all the way through the sweep. It's just allowing more top end.
Yep.
Very cool.
That's kind of a nice thing here. Those are two very different tone controls. And if you look at the Super Rodent.
Okay, I can tell from the name there's a rat in there.
There is.
Okay.
Definitely. The rat's downstairs in the cellar there.
And which rat is this based on? Because there's several of those, and you know.
So I would probably say this is based primarily on a late '80s, '90s one. We had several in the house.
Yeah.
And they're real great pedals. But they're also very simple, and they have a filter control.
That's right.
Yep. And up on top is the Boss SD1.
Okay, cool.
So that'd be kind of similar to a Tube Screamer on steroids, maybe, or like a full drive 2.
That's right. Okay.
Yep. And so on the Boss tone control, it's like this Tube Screamer tone control, and it's just allows you to get a fixed amount of high frequency, or you can roll off all the highs.
Right.
And a Rat filter control is just a low pass filter. It just takes high frequencies to ground. So that's what makes it kind of fun, because in this case, if you're in the SD1 mode, or you want to go to the rat drive, so you get the hard clipping of a rat.
Yeah.
But now instead of a passive tone control, filter control, you can move to the Boss SD1 active tone control.
Awesome.
And so you get much more bass through it.
Right.
And you can really get some pretty great sounding highs through it too.
Yeah.
But
sustain out the nose. Here's the SD circuit. Let's do this one more time. I almost never do that, go like kind of minor bluesy over that kind of chord progression.
it just goes to show that, the difference in sounds that you can make by switching out tone controls instead of just a part or two in a drive circuit, how my previous mods were.
Yeah.
This, when you're taking whole sections and changing them, that's kind of a big mod.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And these are these all like what kind of bypass do we have going on here? And
that's the other part that makes these really fun and unique. So for the first time, we have drive pedals out with end-mounted jacks. I know our customers wanted that for about 2 decades, so I got around to listening to my customers.
Yeah.
And but then I thought, okay, I can't do, because we're moving to a soft touch.
Right.
I have this option of holding this down and making it do some other function, right?
Yeah.
And so me and the programming guy, he's always trying to keep me at bay. Like, Robert, stay away with your ideas, right?
Yeah.
If we double tap this twice, then we can do this. I'm trying to get him to program in all these Easter eggs. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, I can't really do presets. I don't want to have this thing become digital pots and you memorize this and you can save it as a preset and all that nonsense.
Yeah.
So I thought, what could I offer of really good value? What if I could make this thing switchable between true bypass and buffered bypass if you just held this down?
Yeah.
Now that's a great tool.
Absolutely.
And you don't ever have to get inside the pedal, and guitar techs, roadies, whatever, if you're at a gig and you throw the pedal down and you're like, man, it's, I want to have true bypass because I want to plug directly into my amplifier. Well, then you just hold it down for 2 seconds and off you go.
Or if your amp's 100 feet behind you.
Exactly.
Which is very common on big tours. Like the amp's way behind the back line and you're running miles of cable to it. You want something driving the signal to reduce your high-end loss, right? Exactly.
So once we started playing with buffers, then I started thinking, man, I really hope that this professional series of drive pedals that we're doing can get to some big rig type boards,
Right.
And so I want to make sure that if a bassist comes up there with an 18-volt active bass system and pummels my pedal, if a keyboard player comes to me with pro audio levels,
oh, yeah.
I want to make sure this thing can handle anything. So we designed all the pedals to work at 18 volts as well as 9.
Yeah.
And then you get a variety of added benefits. You know what I mean? People that try it out in the field, they'll try it on all these pedals, and they all report to me, wow, that made such a killer difference for this pedal.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
You know, in this position, whether it be the Muse Driver or the Noble Screamer, they try them out and they all report back cool findings. You know what I mean? I just love the way it sounds on 18 volts. But,
right.
But technically, that allows me to say, you know, I don't care what the source is, you're not going to have any unwanted distortions in buffered mode. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And our, so
Yeah.
that was that's another fun thing with this new series. That that all the new pedals, all the analog ones, will be 9 to 18 volts, and this buffered to true bypass switching system on all of our pedals as well, because it just seems to make both. You know, music store dealers, they love answering that question. You know, is it true bypass? Yep. Oh man, I want it buffered. Oh, it is too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the pro touring guys that, you know, might need it for very valid reasons, you know, depending on how the rig is, the pedal board is set up or what it's running.
That's awesome. I remember, like, there was a version of the OCD that got pretty popular in town. And I think of it as the version 2, but am I thinking 1.2? Because you said 1.7. It was like the second iteration of it ever.
Yeah.
So how did the naming change over time?
I don't know if I have all the details worked out specifically. I could be wrong, but I thought that, is it possible that V2 was when Mike moved to maybe the surface mount parts and stuff like that, and so he made quite a bit of those that were a V2 that had this. I think all the V1 point somethings are all the hand populated boards, but I could be wrong. There's no like V3 of the OCD, right?
Right.
So I think that differentiates all the different mods to, you know, the original OCD, and then I think when it gets to 2 point something. He did have a lot of success. I remember him telling me that that he particularly liked the way that that one sounded, and that the older, I thought it was 1.7. He said customers really liked the 1.7 because they liked the way that the op amp clipped.
Yeah.
You know, and so
I feel I don't I feel like I remember him getting a little bit irritated at people liking the old ones.
Yeah.
He's like, the new one, this one's better for all these reasons. And, you know, he's kind of a big personality anyway. Yeah. It's pretty funny. But I remember I had it wasn't the very first version. I had the next version that had slightly less bass. And I thought that was a V2, but maybe it was a 1.2.
No, maybe you could be right. I think our V1.7, if that's what it actually is, it's kind of funny because you can go on the back and the 1.7s and all that stuff, that's not really his making back then. So
totally.
You have to kind of go off serial number ranges.
Yeah.
And that's, again, what the internet says.
Oh, gosh.
Because I've got some that are right there on those borders between, is this a 1.6 or a 1.7?
Yeah.
And it's clearly built one way and not the other way. So it is kind of hard to tell. But Mike played around with some of the potentiometer values, maybe some cap values and stuff like that. And sometimes there was a little bit more bass. I think he changed the taper or the tone control on there and stuff like that. Plus you had the HP and LP switch, which has a profound effect in the voicing of the whole circuit. You know,
totally.
It's at the end of it.
I loved. The reason that pedal sticks out in my mind is because it was my main overdrive, just to give me a little bit more out of my deluxe reverb. And it could kind of make my old deluxe reverb sound just a little bit Marshall-y. But I also, when you were talking about all your pedals being able to take 18 volts, that was the first one that I had tried to run at 18 volts, and I was like, oh, this is a different ball game, you know?
Yeah, especially with the OCD. In my mind, it's kind of like that thing where Mike is saying, this one on paper sounds better, you know what I mean? And everyone's going, no. You know, sometimes as a designer that happens. But in this case with the OCD and you put 18 volts to it, that's when you get less of the op amp clipping. And to me, I don't like the sound of op amp clipping. That's what that's what Andy Timmons and I did on the Boss Blues Driver, in my opinion, is reduce the chances of that happening. And then in the germanium mode, it further reduces that. And so when you move to 18 volts, you increase the headroom on those op amps, and they're not going to clip as much.
Yeah.
And it sounds better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's got more power. It's got more headroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything sounds like it's operating at more. It's just stronger sounding.
Yeah.
It's like you're not hurting it. You know, you can't.
Yeah.
Man, that's so cool. Well, I'm gonna play through these, and you know, I'll probably cut back to us talking, and at this point, I don't know how I'm gonna edit the video. I might have already done that a couple of times. One last thing. Did you have something else you wanted to say about?
No, I was just hoping that you just relic the rest of my pedals too. So if you want to end the video with you like throwing them on top of each other, we can Tonka trucks.
Yeah. We can if you want to sell relic editions, we can just put them in my backpack for a couple of weeks in my session bag. You know,
Joe relict Keeley 4-in-1 series any day.
Yeah. The JO relic. That's funny.
JO relic.
Yeah. Yep. One other thing I wanted to mention. And I remember this from when we were all hanging out at Brett's and doing those Noble Screamer videos, was how good your Hydra pedal sounds.
Wonderful.
Man, I remember hearing the different tremolo modes and the different reverb modes and just thinking like, wow, that sounds really good. And I have one, and I've been carrying it around, and it's been the last pedal in my chain for quite a while on sessions. I just think it sounds fantastic, especially at really slow settings. The reverbs all sound really great. It sounds to me like it's really hard to do a pedal spring reverb. Is that true?
It is, because there's a lot going on there that's hard to emulate with code. So that spring on there is great, because we were playing with the differences between, I've got this Matchless Chieftain, a 96 Matchless Chieftain that has a absolutely wonderful reverb sound on it. It's just glorious. The Mesa Lone Star has got a very interesting reverb. It's also killer sounding, but it seems like it almost has a chorus effect to it on its own.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I shouldn't say a chorus effect, but you know, it's some sort of modulation
in there
that makes me. I don't hear a pitch, but it sounds like it's shimmering or something, right? There's something going on.
Yeah.
It's not, so we devised a control in there to control like the spring age, just to show that kind of range of the springiness of you know, either vintage ones or whatever. So that the plate reverb in that Hydra is wonderful too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
those are the two modes I spend the most time on.
Yeah,
you know,
that is a fun pedal. That was our COVID pedal. We had a hard time with that one. When that pedal came out, like I think a month or two after it came out, maybe it was 2 months, a big fire at a chip plant in Japan happened.
Man.
And there was no more getting our codec, our A to D converter and D to A converter had been eliminated.
Wow.
So we had to go back and design it a completely different way. And it was quite a hiccup to get that pedal off the ground.
Man,
and
that's
plus
crazy.
it was in a difficult time, so it was.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it gets the recognition that it truly deserves, because right from the beginning we were putting those Hydra reverbs in our in a secret Echoes pedal for Trey Anastasio of Fish. And so that whole crowd was judging it quite harshly, you know what I mean? And going, no, more of this, more of that, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it got a lot of attention over the years it was developed. So
yeah.
It's fun to see people get to hear it.
Tell me about the tremolo modes, because one of them sounds like your classic, like Fender tremolo, and then it sounds like there's a harmonic tremolo, which is an older Fender tremolo. That actually comes from the Brown panel amps, right? And then you have a vibrato mode as well.
Like a magnetone thing or a pitch,
pitch
vibrato.
Yeah, that to me, it was like, I've got all these sounds in one pedal, and the sounds are so quality, like I don't feel like I'm getting quantity over quality with it.
Right.
You know?
Right. No, the Dream processor is from France that we use in there, and I think that it sounds fabulous. A lot of the sound quality with guitar pedals starts with all of our analog design around it. We've got to get your signal in there, and we've got to get it converted to digital, and you can buy better sound quality with better codecs. So we didn't skimp there at all, and we have a bunch of great ears at the shop, you know, constantly critiquing everything that we're putting together, and we don't fib to each other. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. Very cool. Well, thanks for coming on. Is there any last words of wisdom from the man himself regarding your stuff, or you know?
No, I just really appreciate having the ability to kind of come up with this cool mod idea where you can swap out parts of drive pedals, and it's great that you pointed out that the Angry Orange works so well with the broken up amp. You know what I mean? Because I don't always hear them from that perspective. You know, when I'm designing them. So I thought that was really, really cool that you noticed that as well.
Well, that's the whole place I'm operating from. I don't typically use a pedal just to hear what that pedal does by itself. My number one thing is a high quality amp. I got to run everything through a high quality amp that I like the way it breaks up. And so it's not just what the pedal does, it's how it interacts with the amp and how it pushes the amp. To me, it makes it sound more like one thing, you know, like they're working together better. It's not just a clean platform. I would have to change all my settings on all my pedals if I went to an ultra clean high headroom.
Right.
I mean, it would be, I would step on things and get like 3 or 4 dB boost in my ears, which would freak everybody out, you know, on the floor. So for me, it's how they interact that's the biggest thing. And yeah, it's been really cool just, you know, using the drive of one pedal with the tone of another, or sticking with the classic circuit and seeing how that works. And it's all just done really, really well. So I hope you guys enjoyed our little hangout. I enjoyed hanging out with you.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, so there'll be some playing, and yeah, I'm just excited to keep using this stuff. It's always, I get so set in my ways, and I don't even think to go try new things out, and then here you are. No, check these out. This is cool. You will like it.
This is worth checking out.
Yeah, you're right. So, all right. Well, thanks you all. I will see you soon. Subscribe if you haven't, and we'll talk to you later.